In the northern part of the kingdom west, this is where LionsGate lies. Here the bird sings outside his nest as he greets the morning sunrise. In LionsGate 'neath the tall fir trees, on your face feel the ocean breeze. Feel the magic that's in the air, in LionsGate the fair.
Recording has started, just like it said.
And so it did. Thank you, Jerry. Welcome to the Pride of Lions Gate, the Lion's Den. I am Baron Kinrick. Today for our panel, we have Ayla, Baronin Adiantum, hails from the summits, where they are currently the Crown's representative in Adiantum. The Honorable Noble Lykani hails from the Kingdom of Meridies, where they live comfortably in the Barony of South Downs. The Honorable Lady Colette La Trouvere is from Antir in the Barony of Dragon's Mist, and she is well known as one of our leading bardic voices. Lord Seamus McMurrough is from the Kingdom of Antir. He resides in the Shire of Glendafton. He's a noted swordsperson and currently serves as Ayla's champion.
Actually, I moved to Adiantum. But
I stole him. He's mine.
Okay.
I'm in Glendufin.
Okay, please continue, Your Excellency.
Well, I did say that you were the champion, so anyway, I got it. And last, sorry. Her Excellency Genevieve Choue from Terra Pomeria does an amazing amount of service. And last but not least, the noble Robin Bowring is attending with us from the Shire, also from the Shire of Glendafton. They're well known for their bardic and service. I now hand the panel over to Piaras, our moderator.
Hi everyone, I'm Pierce McTarlock. I am a member of the Order of Defense. I'm also from Glendufin. And I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited we had this opportunity. I wanted to thank the Barony of Lions Gate for this space, and I especially wanted to give a special thanks to Duchess Kiva, who has been just an amazing person working with me, putting this panel together and the advertising, she's amazing. So I just wanted to give her a shout out before we kind of get started. I wanted to give a brief, I know we had quick names, but I did want to give the panel members another opportunity to introduce themselves, but also to let us know your pronouns and if you're comfortable, how you identify, since the subject of this is sexuality and how that kind of interfaces with the SCA. So I think it would be helpful for our audience to know basically who we are as people all around. So I'm going to go ahead and just kick it off to Ayla, and then you can kick it off to whoever you want after that.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Ayla Roth, current Baronin of the Barony of Adiantum. I am gender fluid, so any pronoun you choose to use, I accept, and I identify as bisexual. Lykani, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, yes, Lykani.
Lykani.
My name is Lykani. I am queer. I'm queer in my gender, queer in my sexuality, and queer in my sex. I am been in the SCA since 1990. I do art, glass art in the SCA. Moment I'm a retired heavy fighter. And I'm flexible in pronouns.
I'm Colette, Colette La Trouvere, more commonly just Colette the Bard, formerly of Caid, and now I live in Glendufin in Antir. Oh, I forgot the questions. Oh, sorry, I'm back. Okay. I am gender fluid / gender fey, she or they. I'm comfortable with both. I honestly wouldn't be bothered by he either. And I identify as pansexual and polyamorous.
Is it my
Hey,
turn?
I'm Genevieve Choue. I am from Terra Pomeria in Antier, our little welcoming area. She, her pronouns. I identify as a queer Black female, and a lot of the work that I do, a lot of the service that was mentioned, revolves around EDI issues. And so this is also not only dear to my identity heart, but the work that I do in the SCA.
Robin, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Robin Bowering. I reside in Glendufen. I am agender, non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. And I do the bardics in Glendufen. I forgot the other questions, but here we are.
How do you identify?
Aside from agender, non-binary, polyamorous, bisexual, pansexual. I'm very like fluid on words and don't tend to use hyper-specific labels a lot of the time.
Hi everybody, I'm Seamus McMurrough, formerly of the West, now up in Adiantum after spending a couple years down in Glendufen. Identify as he, him, them, and kind of like Robin there, pansexual, polyamorous, but kind of, you know, flow, depending on who my romantic interests are at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you all. And I'm Pierce from Glendufen, he, him, his, identify as queer. I originally identified as gay, and that has kind of changed over my evolution of who I am as a person. So the next thing, I just kind of wanted to give us space to talk about. I want each of you to tell me kind of how you found the SCA. I want to hear your origin story is the best way I like to put it. We're all superheroes in a lot of ways, and I want to hear your origin story. So let's go ahead and kick it off to Lykani first.
Well, I was in high school, I guess I was a freshman in high school. It was 1990, was at the local game store, and the SCA was doing a demo, and I was too shy to go up and talk to them at the demo. So afterwards, I left a note on the bulletin board for somebody from that group that was here last weekend doing the demo to give me a call, and that was all she wrote. I think the moment I knew I had found a place to stay was I had gotten taken under the wing of Countess Jillian Anna Delanda of Meridies. At the time, she was soon to be the princess. And we were at an event, and I was being all shy, as I tended to be at the time. And she was like, you know, we don't have time for this bullshit. Take your clothes off, put your court clothes on. We got to go. And when you have a big dyke of a woman tell you to get naked, you just kind of do it. And from that point on, I knew I'd found my home. So.
That's awesome. And we're going to go ahead and be a little more free flow too. I can call on people if people want, or just go ahead and jump in or raise your hand and talk if you feel inclined.
Okay. So when I was a little kid, my first crush was on Jatara from the Thundercats. It makes a point here. My second crush was Mad Mardigan from Willow. So I was running around with a stick, pretending to be the greatest swordsman alive, beating up all the neighborhood kids. And so my mom needed to find an outlet. So she started me Olympic fencing about 8 years old. I wasn't quite doing it, so she decided that she was going to be a merchant in the SCA. So I grew up, you know, running around with a stick, pretending to be a knight in the SCA. When I got a little older, about the time my son was born, I took a step back for a number of years. Single dad, it was way too difficult. I didn't really have a lot of support from my community at the time. But since I've been back, I'm pretty much all in at this point. But, you know, it's SCA family is second family, always has been for most of my life. So.
So I did a lot of I did a lot of community theater when I was in high school and just after. And in 2008, I had some friends who did a lot of theater with me tell me, you know what you'd love? This thing called the SCA. And I got really excited, and the now defunct, I believe, Shire of Windale, I'm not sure on that, had an event, and I went to Walmart and bought some poly cotton from their fabric section and got a McCall's pattern that was vaguely Florentine, but I didn't know that at the time, and sewed it hilariously badly and fell in love. And then Estrella War was my first war, and I moved to Kai pretty much right after my first event, and started doing Bardic, and Bardic has been kind of my entire life since I started the SCA. It's been what everything in my life has revolved around. So I learned to sew better costumes so I could be on stage.
I will follow my sweetheart. So I came to this SCA through Southern Oregon University. I came in as a music major back in 2011, 2012. I have done music my whole life. My mother is a voice teacher and opera singer, and one of my choir buddies who knew that I was a massive nerd was like, hey, I think I know some people you might like, and brought me to the fighter practices that were occurring at SOU property. And that's how I met Glenduffin. And Glenduffin has been a really wonderful home to me and many other queer people in this area. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and it's been just a lot of positive love and good stuff.
I was kind of shoved into the SCA. I met my partner, Baroness Lindis, and it was about a month in, and she's like, hey, I do this geeky thing. I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I do this thing called the SCA, and she told me a little bit about it, and I was like, shit, it's like Role Models. Because I had just seen the movie Role Models not too long before. I was like, what is happening? And not too long after that, she said, well, I just took this position as Baroness. I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting into. Do I stay? Do I go? So my first 3 years were just a ride, you know, helping her be in the role of Baroness. I was thrown into everything. I was stringing necklaces, painting awards, sewing clothing. I had never sewn a stitch in my life. And here I am trying to figure out how to put an outfit together. So I was one of those folks who kind of got shoved in head first, and I fell in love and, you know, really stayed around because Toirdhealbhaigh is just an amazing place to live. You know, as far as diversity, we have a really diverse LGBTQ plus family, and I really found a home there. And luckily, I kind of like Lynn, so I decided to stick around.
Hey. Hi, Ayla again. I grew up in the sticks, and the high school that I was going to had a reputation. Most of the female-bodied humans that went there either didn't graduate or graduated with a child and a drug addiction. Ooh. My mother decided that that was not the high school I needed to be going to, and sent me to live with my aunt, who had become a merchant the year previous. So for 3 years in high school, we went to every single major event from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And at that point, I was hooked. And at that point, we had hooked like half a dozen other high school kids at that point. And I think most of them still play. I've lived all up and down the I-5 corridor, Washington and Oregon. I haven't lived in Canada. And one of the things that kept me coming back to the SCA was that I was me and I was appreciated for me. And it didn't matter my gender, it didn't matter any of that or where I came from. I was just allowed to succeed or fail on my own merits. There wasn't an expectation, oh, you come from an underprivileged area, you know, you're one of those or anything like that. And I collected family and family collected me over the years. And the SCA has, over the last 20 years, quite literally saved my life on more than one occasion. It's a community that I couldn't see giving up unless I absolutely had to. Sorry, that's me.
Thank you. I'll tell mine real quick. I started in the SCA actually in 2002 when I was going to college, also at Southern Oregon University down here in Ashland, Oregon. But I stepped away. I never really got into it at that point. The group at the time was not terribly welcoming. There were just some personality issues, and it was big at the time as well, and it's big now, but it was very hard to be a new person that knew nobody, and there wasn't really that same kind of draw to pull people in. So I pretty quickly fluttered away and came back 10 years later. I got pulled in by my partners who had both decided, oh, we're going to go do this SCA thing that we've heard about, and jumped full force. And I kind of got dragged along to at least one event. The first event I went to was one in Myrtleholt, which was Josephine County nearby. And we had stayed up literally all night, had not slept, made my first thing a garb, which was very nice. But we didn't sleep, and I went and I just kind of stood there and didn't know anyone and was still kind of awkward and didn't come back for another, I want to say 6 months until I went to On Tour West War, and that really hooked me. And I didn't even really do anything at the event. I just kind of was there with people, and it was amazing. It was like, wow, it's like a Ren Fair, but without all the selling stuff that I didn't like to do. So that's really kind of what got me into it. And also, right around that time after On Tour West War, I got a sword put in my hand by Master Armand, and it just kind of went from there. You get hooked onto something that you really love, and then you can't really stop. So I heard a lot of people who said one of the things that keeps them is the family they've found and the branch that they're in that really kind of not just accepts them, but what is the word I want? Embraces them. And so it really leads pretty well into my next question, and that is, how has your sexuality affected your participation in the SCA, either positively or negatively? And you can think of the history that you know, from beginning to now. And then as a caveat to that as well, just kind of think about this, how would you compare your reception in the SCA to that of the modern world? And again, we're just going to throw it open.
Yeah, I can start. I definitely have to talk about intersectionality. You know, being a queer person of color in Oregon is completely and terrifyingly isolating. And so coming to the SCA, you know, as a person of color, I still felt isolated. But being someone who is queer was different, right? So I had this community who was so open to just me being me that I fell in love with the people of Terra Primera. I just have to brag, I mean, because they're just fantastic. I mean, we really are just a diverse group and welcoming and family oriented. And I felt really comfortable there. Going outside of Terra Primera, I didn't always feel as safe. And that I think is just a product of our identities, right? You don't know who's around you and how they feel. And I remember talking to Lynn and really saying, you know, is it okay to hold your hand? I would say I feel safer being a queer person of color in the SCA than I do outside of the SCA. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes I feel more, I notice that I'm a person of color more than someone who is queer and vice versa. So it's just, you find your place and you find your people. And I think that's what has helped me. And like others have said, that's what helped me stay.
For me, being a part of the SCA actually kind of helped me on my own discovery of my gender and my sexuality. I was raised pretty conservative, and I didn't have any like conservative homophobia or anything. Like, I grew up with gay uncles, like I had gay friends, but I don't think I ever internalized the idea that that was a possibility for me. I think like I always joke, I'm like, I didn't come out of the closet so much as kind of vaguely wander into the meadow with the flowers in it. Like, I just like, and the SCA was a big part of that, meeting other people who were poly, and having my, you know, one of my best friends in the SCA say, you realize you were in a poly triad in college, right? It just was an asexual one. And I was like, oh, is that what that was? You know, you know, meeting Robin in the SCA and singing with them and talking to them about gender and their gender expression, and realizing, oh, I don't think I'm a capital W woman. And just like, yeah, it has helped me figure out who I am. And that's been invaluable.
And I think as a closeted at the time a man, the SCA provided me with space to discover myself. And I highly appreciate that. But what I've noticed now is that my partner, as an out gay person who's been living a very out gay life, is very put off by the SCA because of the lack of queer visibility. And I never realized how invisible queer people are in the SCA until I started seeing it through his eyes. You know, one of the striking things was, I think the last time we had a controversy, there was a group created in Meridies, a secret Facebook group for LGBTQ people in Meridies. And I was shocked and somewhat worried about the number of people that I have grown up around who I never knew were gay or queer or trans, who won't join the Meridian Blue Feather page, but will join the secret page. And I'm happy that they have found a place, but it also kind of bothers me because it feeds into that lack of visibility. I think if I was coming into the SCA now, I don't know that I would stay, because there's very few events like this that are LGBTQ embracing activities. It's, you know, in Meridies, if you're in one of the two major baronies, you get a very different experience than if you're in one of the shires. And so that's the perspective that I have come to now. So I wish we had more stuff like this and more things when we come out of quarantine and back to some semblance of normalcy, of increased visibility of LGBT people. So I think it is a place that people who are looking to discover themselves go, but there's a different expectation now in what those self-discovery spaces look like as opposed to what they needed to look like in 1990. I'll shut up now.
No, don't shut up. Keep going.
I'll follow up if that's okay. As a newer person who came in a very queer area, it was really surprising to me when I did join the SCA, and shortly thereafter, the inspirational equality discussion was happening, and then shortly after passed. That happened fairly early on in my SCA time. And it was very shocking to me because I grew up in Portland, a very liberal area, very accepting parents. It's just been kind of the norm for me to be in an open and accepting place. And so that happening so soon after my joining did give me a hint of like, oh, this is a group that's been around for a while, and there is a legacy here that is not necessarily examined. And there have been people who I've talked to who've gotten really uncomfortable when asked to examine that disconnect, that space. I definitely, a way that the SCA is very much like the mundane world is that if I am in a party setting and gender does come up, I'm going to be answering questions. I am going to be either a source of knowledge or a source of curiosity for people. I've answered a lot of questions about my own gender, about my sexuality, like at 11 o'clock at night around a campfire, which is not something that non-queer people necessarily end up having to do. I am cool with it. Obviously, I consider myself somewhat of an ambassador when it comes to situations like that. So I do try to be chill and calm about it. I guess another way that the SCA is very much reflects the mundane world is that the people who are really against queerness and against even the idea of inspirational equality, who are still out there, are loud and uncomfortable to be around. I don't know if that covers everything, but
that leaves me. Do I need to talk? No, your turn. Go.
You can talk.
No, your turn.
I knew that I was bisexual from a very young age. For a long time, I didn't embrace it, mostly because I thought that it had come out of trauma in my own past. And it took a lot of years for me to realize, no, this is just me, and it's okay to be me, and there isn't a dam waiting to break that's going to change this. You know, the whole conversation around sexuality shifted and changed all the time while I was growing up. And I was told, you know, oh, you're just a tomboy, it's just a phase, you know, all of these things. And figuring out that my sexuality and my sexual identity were mine. They weren't anybody else's, and they didn't need to be anybody else's, was a learning process for me. And I remember, like I said, I've been bisexual for as long as I can remember, but I always kept it really quiet because either it was otherized, oh, it's just a phase, or you're just that one time in college girl, or whatever. Or on the other hand, it was fetishized. Oh, she likes girls. How about you, me, and your girlfriend, huh? And that was just icky. So I kept my truth quiet because I didn't like the jammy hands on my sexuality, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was just a couple of years ago, I had been struggling with my whole identity and what I was. Did I need to be a what? Did I need to put a name to that? And I was sitting around with a bunch of friends at a birthday party at an event. Actually, it was at a Coronet event. And I realized I don't have to label anything because I am me. If you want to have a relationship with me, I'm willing to get into a conversation with you about who and what I am. But otherwise, I'm just me. And I'm going to look at you because you're just you. And we can have a million conversations and just respect that we are who the heck we are. And nobody has to feel singled out or otherized or made to feel wrong or icky or bad about their experiences and their truths and their realities. And even, you know, in my time in the SCA, that we're talking about sexual identity right now, or preferences, or however you want to label it. But it comes down to everything. You know, you don't have to be the person who loves service. You don't have to be the person who loves fighting. You can do service and you can do fighting, and both of those things are totally okay at whatever level you want to do them. The same thing with your personal, romantic, or physical relationships. They're yours. And they can be whatever you and the other person agree for them to be. And it doesn't need anybody else's fingers in it. You know what I mean? Sorry. That's me.
Unless you're into that sort of thing.
Right. So I don't know. I came out as bi when I was 14 and was absolutely not taken serious by anybody. I've always worshipped Pan, and I actually had some trauma when I was younger that has caused me to over-sexualize things. If I don't have sex with somebody, they don't like me. They won't like me. And it's taken a long time to kind of break that cycle, but it also kind of goes with like the whole satyriasis and being a little gender fey or whatnot. There's that stigma that kind of comes around with having that over-sexualized experience growing up and having multiple lovers throughout the years. You know, you kind of get that look where it's like, oh, you know, that's Seamus. Don't take him seriously. He's going to flirt with everybody and he's a big ol' whore. So, you know, watch yourself. I'm really not. I mean, I do the flirt with everybody thing, but there's always been that stigma. And, you know, the SCA, especially in the 90s growing up, like was kind of a playground for that traumatized over sexual, please pay attention to me, look at me, I'm cute thing. And it's definitely changed throughout the years for the better, definitely. But I still carry some of that stigma or the idea that people just don't really take my emotional, like projected emotional, hey, I like you. No, I mean, I really like you very seriously. My current partner, it took a year for them to even realize that I was serious about having a relationship because I'd already had that buildup of reputation and, oh, well, you're poly and you kind of get around. It's like, yeah, but I actually want relationships more than, you know, just at events or just overnight, which is, you know, kind of a stigma that comes along with, you know, the polyamorous, pansexual little fae dude. But the SCA, you know, probably had some to do with some of that trauma when I was younger, being the playground that it used to be. I think it's also done a lot, though, to help me be comfortable now. And definitely, like, when I volunteered to do this panel, I was terrified that I would be like, get told once again, you know, hey, thanks for being an ally. Now go sit down and shut up. The grown-ups are talking. So, I mean, that's always been kind of a thing, especially with like the real world. You know, I can't go around flirting with everybody in the real world and expressing myself. I work in a very like manly man job. And I probably wouldn't go over so well at work, calling everybody gorgeous and hand holding and whatnot. But the SCI definitely can get away with that a little bit more and be comfortable and know that I'm in a safer environment, which, you know, so ups and downs with the SCA and that, I think that it's only going to be getting better, and discussions like this are going to help that. And I think that it's amazing that we're doing this. Thank you for letting me be involved.
Thank you. I'll talk a little bit about mine too, kind of keeping with the theme. The SCA for me has honestly been a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to my sexuality. When I started, it was in 2012 as well. Just a little bit before Robin started, I would say 6 or so months, maybe, I don't remember. Same branch. Inspirational equality was just a discussion at that point, which kind of floored me a little bit at that point. I was like, why couldn't we have 2 kings, 2 queens, 2 whatever? Why this rule? And I watched that kind of conversation come to a head, and the BOD came out with their new rule, but essentially their new rule was crap. I'll say it out loud. And I did, even though I was new to the SCA, I was like 6 months in, I wrote a letter and I was like, this is absolute garbage. Because what the rule was, if people don't remember at the time, the rule was your consort had to be an opposite gender unless the kingdom decided otherwise, which essentially said the rule is discriminatory and the kingdoms could decide to make it undiscriminatory. Instead of going the opposite direction, they could have, and I got very passionate about this and I still am, they could have said, you have to have a consort, and that they could have left it at that. And then the kingdoms, of course, the kingdoms have always been allowed to decide who fights in those tournaments. Those kingdoms could then decide to be discriminatory and say, we only want pairings of opposite genders. So it was a bit disheartening. I'm happy that it was fairly recently that rule has changed and they went back to, you know, cut off the last 4 words and just say you have to have a consort. So it's been good to see that transition. Throughout my life, I grew up in a very small logging town. It was not out until I was 23, and I at that point came out as gay and polyamorous to my Mormon family, which is always very exciting. But it wasn't until I got to the SCA that I was ever called the F word, ever. And it wasn't to my face. It came third party that someone had called me the F word. So I like to remember that the SCA is an organization, but it's also the individual people that are in it. My branch was very different when I started to what it is now. I wouldn't say it was queer antagonistic, but it was nothing like what it is now, where I've had it called by people in the West Coast, blue feathered, the queerest barony in Ontario, the queerest barony on the West Coast. So things change as people come in and go. So I would say, yeah, it's been a mixed bag. I would say I do feel more comfortable expressing who I am in the SCA because of the people that I surround myself with and the people that I want to be with. But you have to look online and go, look what's going on over there in that kingdom. Look at the words being used online to describe certain people. I'm glad to see the BOD taking action to censor those people or to R&D them, but we have to remember that sometimes we're in a microcosm about our microcosm of tolerance, you know, of acceptance, inclusion, diversity, that in other areas, it's not the same. And when Lykani talked about their partner, that really kind of brings that to a head, that I feel great in my barony because we're inclusive and welcoming and very queer, but that's not the truth everywhere. So I want to thank you all for kind of sharing your truth with that too. The last question I've got, and then we're going to open up for some questions. What would you say allies and the community at large could do actively to embrace your identity and make the SCA a more welcoming place? If you could just paint a brush and make everyone do what you said.
For me, so I'm panromantic. And poly. I don't necessarily need to have a sexual relationship with somebody to feel that I'm getting what I need from them. And gender being not an issue with that, the normalization of that, I think, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, oh, that's Seamus, he's a hoe. Wouldn't be so much if everybody was, oh, hi, Nightcrawler, that's my cat. If like that was just something that people like in their minds were like, oh, it's perfectly okay to have romantic based relationships with a number of people so that everybody is getting their emotional needs taken care of across the board, and it doesn't make you a slut for jumping laps all night, that would be rad. That said, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. I promise.
I'm going to jump in the back half of what he just said. You know, we've been talking about consent and consent culture for years now, and that concept has been us, obviously, but like it's huge now. It's across the world, this idea of consent. Are they consenting? Are you consenting? Are you being healthy and safe? Are your friends going to see you being healthy and safe? If the answer is yes to both of those questions, y'all are consenting and your friends can help see that you are healthy and safe, then shoot, you know, they're fine. They'll figure it out. If they need help, they'll come ask for help, or they'll send up a red flag or a flare or whatever. But when we're talking about consent, I mean, that's key. Why does it matter? Why do you have to know? Are you a boy and a girl? Are you a girl and a girl? Do you like just girls or just boys? Like, why does it have to be up for public opinion? I love the support that when somebody says, I am this, and their community says, we recognize you as that. Go be that, you shining star. I love that, but it doesn't have to be up for public opinion. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you. But I like listening to what you say. Don't ever have couples on your panel.
Oh, okay, I guess I'm going. For me personally, so being gender fey and being a curvy, short, very, you know, female looking person, I felt a lot of self-erasure and just, you know, people kind of defaulting to, oh, Colette's a girl. And like, I didn't realize it bothered me until I realized it bothered me. And I would love to see more of a normalization of, oh, nice to meet you. What are your pronouns? And to see a lot of the gendered language, you know, fade away. I have a friend who never ever wanted their AOA because they could not stand the idea of being labeled either a lord or a lady. They were like, no, I don't, like, I cannot, you know, make that choice. And luckily, the Herald, who was at the event, because, you know, people wrote in anyways against this person's wishes because they meant well, they wanted them to get this recognition. But luckily, the Herald was Cormac, and I was like, hey, here's the situation. And so Cormac just, you know, right away, like he gendered out all of the language and made it so that, you know, when it did get back to them, they would know that he protected their wishes in that way. And for my part, music is very gendered and very traditional and binary, and, you know, makes sense, medieval music, etc. But one thing that I've been trying to do on my album that I'm working on now, as opposed to my first album, is there are songs with gender neutral pronouns. There are songs where I'm singing specifically about females and specifically about males and kind of everything in between, so that people don't fall through the cracks, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of people can fall through the cracks on the gender front because it just hasn't been normalized yet. And I think that's important.
To jump off of that, having more inclusive language is always such a positive. It really helps me feel like, oh, it's that whole thing where parts of the SCA are really good and accepting and parts are not so much. So if I hear somebody using neutral language, be it a herald or during a court or what, even just around, I take it as a positive sign.
It feels safe.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, yes, good. And I also do appreciate the level of research that's been going into finding appropriate gender neutral language. It's been an adventure for me as armature, various, I feel like the language will continue to, sorry, text popped along the bottom of the screen and the words that was coming out of my mouth completely left my head. But yeah, gender neutral language is great. Normalizing pronouns and wearing pronouns, also great, love that. Just being really cognizant when you're writing for the SCA to make efforts to include as many people as you can, and to be really aware that you don't know who's in your audience. If you're teaching a class or doing a performance, be aware that all types of people are in the SCA, and really think about how different types of groups might respond to something, whether it be a particularly raunchy song, or we're gonna talk for an hour and a half about this particular society and place and time, but not mention queer people at all. Like, that's, you can tell when there's holes, when you're not being represented.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see more stuff done like this, where there's a celebration of LGBTQ life at the group level. And it shouldn't just be baronies. We know, you know, in the States, not from Canada, I don't know how it is up there. Imagine there's some similarities. Urban life and rural life is just different. And the baronies all tend to be in urban environments where LGBTQ people tend to be more accepted. There needs to be events like this held at the Shire level in rural communities. I want to see SCA groups at Pride events, advertising their activity as a safe place for LGBT people to come. I want to, like, blue feather's great, but new people don't know what that means. I want to see more rainbows. I want to see more trans flags. I want to see more, we are cued to color schemes. We've gotten cued to our particular color scheme. So I know when I see the trans colors, what that means. And I know when I see rainbow colors, what that probably means. I want to see more of that color. We go to an SCA event and there's all this hidden language about, you know, I'm safe, I'm not, I got my blue feather, I got my pale blue feather. We went to the Ren Fair and there were just flat out rainbow flags everywhere, allyship flags everywhere. My partner lit up. That is not the way he lights up when we're at an SCA event. I'm having to go, no, that means that, because there's a difference between the visibility and this other invisible language. And LGBTQ people have had to live that way with this secret language, you know, but we don't need to have our live as friends of Dorothy anymore. The world is changing. And I love Clan Blue Feather. I would like to see Clan Blue Feather's feather put on rainbow flags now, so that people can start associating what that blue feather means to what the language is in the modern world. I also, you know, we've had a lot of people talk about the SCA as a place where you can explore. I was having sexual activity at SCA events. I wasn't always safe, and I didn't know to be safe because there was no sexual health education in Georgia when I was growing up. Like, it's happening here, and the fact that we can have conversations about healthcare for horses but we can't have conversations about healthcare for people with penises and vaginas. That bothers me. Like, I've been trying for 5 years to do classes on PrEP. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a pill you take once a day. It prevents HIV infection. The CDC now recommends it to all people who are having sex with more than one partner. And what TASP means, which is treatment as prevention, which is if you have HIV and you take your one pill once a day, you can't transmit HIV to other people. We need to have those discussions because sex is happening in the SCA, straight sex, gay sex, queer sex, trans sex, it's happening in the SCA and we don't talk about it. And people are being infected. And that's the reality of LGBTQI for the past 30 years. We just hit the anniversary of the first cases of AIDS over the weekend or 2 weekends ago. And we're still not having conversations about this. And it's really awkward as a trans person to negotiate sex with someone, whether you're at an SCA event or not. And then on top of that, I have to then explain what it means to be on PrEP or HIV positive to people. It just makes it more uncomfortable. And for a lot of us, this is the few places where we can be ourselves. So I want to create a safer place for us to do that. Certainly as a trans person, normalizing gender variance is important, but I think we also need to normalize variance and sexual expression. And we need to elevate more people to visible status, and people that have visible status need to use that privilege and share who they are. And those are my thoughts. Visibility.
I would really absolutely agree with that. Representation matters. Like, I think it's huge just in life, right? If I hear the leave the politics at the gate one more time, I'm gonna start pulling my hair out, because you can't separate my identity. Like, I don't stop being queer once I hit the gate. I don't stop being Black once I hit the gate. There are times I wish I could, right? It sure as hell would make life a lot easier. But the fact is that we're here, and I want to start seeing folks not necessarily tokenized, but where's the, SCA advertising for queer folk? Where are my queer folk of color, right? Where are these folks, and where are our faces? I love that this discussion is happening, and it can't just be these remote spots. Like, we need to start having the education and awareness on a big level, We have the opportunity right now that everything is virtual to reach larger audiences than we ever have before. But that has to be done by word of mouth. We need the leaders in this game to step up and be the role models and examples that they should be, because along with the titles comes the responsibility, the personal responsibility to be the one to step up and make the change. And if that doesn't happen, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to stick until folks start stepping up and being allies. I think the one thing that I struggle with is the word ally. It's not something you can call yourself. It's something that you do that I can say, then you are an ally. You've earned being an ally. You are a safe person. But we have to stop saying I'm an ally and start doing things, right? It's the difference between anti-racist and non-racist. You can be non-racist all day, but if you're anti-racist, that means you're showing me that you're doing the work. If you are an ally, you are out there showing me that you're doing the work, and you're doing the help with representation, right? And you're doing the help with education and awareness, because we can't all do it. We can't be those people every day, every time. We need others to step up to the plate. I know I'm on my soapbox because this is what I do. It's who I am. I got the things to say. But it really is like, folks need to take this opportunity to do education and awareness when we have such a far reach. I'm going to step down.
Thank you so much for speaking.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to say as well, like Kenya said, I want to see branches in Pride. Glendoofin did it a couple of years ago, and it was truly an amazing experience to have the Shire walk down the road, all lined up in rainbow color, showing that the SCA was a safe place for people. I want to see people normalize terms like baronial cornets. I am sick and tired of hearing baron and baroness, because the assumption that your leaders are going to be a man and a woman is pervasive. It's also an interesting thing because baron and baroness, even though no one won that title with a stick, always still assumes baron goes first, baroness goes second. And so there's a lot of kind of gender and misogyny there that I would love to see done away with. I tried to use the terms B&B, baronial coronets, etc. But just in language too, I hear it a lot. People tend to stick to that. We have a game that's really kind of idealizing the, you know, knights in shining armor and ladies in waiting and stuff. And I think that's changing. And I would love to see more of that to really highlight some of the variants that we've talked about. And I agree with everyone about raising up our queer folk, advertising specific to queer spaces, to queer people. It's not good enough to be tolerant, right? We need to reach out and say, not only are you safe, but we want you. And it's a big difference between, sure, you can come, and oh my God, please come. There's a very, very different feel to that. And we need to do better to essentially reach out to those queer folks and let them know. Our queer nerds out there, join us, you know, this is a great thing and please do it with us.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone else have any more comments or things they wanted to say? I think our time, I have no more questions yet, but I think we're going to open up for questions from the audience as well, but I want to give a little bit of space for any other final comments or words.
Yeah, so along with being really visible out there, I really appreciate when people do push back against people being shitty. Like, sorry, I shouldn't be using language, but when people are being phobic and terrible, thankfully, again, this is branch dependent, but in my area, people tend to step up and talk back down. And again, with the just being aware of, like, if you're a Norse, if you're a Viking persona, knowing that, for instance, a lot of Viking imagery has been co-opted by white supremacists, acknowledging that and doing something to mitigate that within your look, because there is a lot of queer solidarity with racial solidarity. I will look for rainbows as well. When I see Norse, I'm like, okay, I see a Norse person. Is there a rainbow somewhere? Is there some indication here to show me that this is somebody who has done their research and who knows what's up versus somebody who just really likes the North?
Kind of going off of the idea of more sexual awareness and sexual health in the SCA. Be the camp that makes a difference. Like my camp at Pennsic Circus of the Damned, they have a table that has pickles, bagels, juice of some kind, and a box of condoms. And literally anyone, even, you know, the giggling teenage kids can come up and grab as many as they want. We'll just keep refilling it because, you know, at least they're getting dispersed that way. I have friends in Kaid who wrote a flyer about consent and put it in terms of like armored combat, like, you know, before you lay on, and put it in, you know, language that people could understand. And the camp that Robin and Cormac and I will be doing eventually once, you know, eventing happens back again. We literally want to, you know, have a rainbow flag and have a sign at the front that says, if you are in danger and you need a safe place, come in. You don't need to ask permission. Just, you know, like when you're at events, make that safe space if you're able to. And make that presence known.
I wanted to take a second. I meant to show this off. I haven't been able to wear it yet. Oh gosh, where is it? There it is. No, it's all blurry.
Let's Beth make that?
That's so cool.
Beth made this, yep. It just has the 2 loops, so I can't put it on my current one, and I only have one. But representation does matter, so I think whatever we can do to show queer people that we're out there is very, very helpful. But I want to thank all of you for taking your time and being open and being proud and sharing this with all of the SCA. It's fantastic, so thank you. And I think we're going to open some questions, probably stop the recording as well.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.